My dear Americans, you will forgive me, but I do not have intention to be smart ass and give you a lecture. But I have a little bit intention to criticize you, or to better to say advise you. This coming election is kind of to be or not to be election, but not because of the media yelling and screaming for 3, 4, 5, 7 years, but because of reality. Well, I would like you to spend a little bit time on the internet, on the area in YouTube, where you can convince yourself and learn at the same time, and not maybe college degree level of the courses. But there are over 50 variety of the short stories on YouTube called, produced by a professor of the Duquesne University in Pittsburgh named Anthony Davis. Anthony without H in first name. And he explains brilliantly well that every single person in this country could most likely understand issues. The debt of our government is not $35 trillion like it is being claimed by mainstream media. And he explained that in one of the sections called 10 Myths of the Federal Government Debts. And starting from myth 1, 2, and all the way to 10, explaining brilliantly well where is the problem and what is the issue. Now, there are two persons running for the show of the presidency of the United States, just less than 2 months to the voting booths to meet each other and decide who is going to lead us. And it will be nice if you are reading that, watching that. You don't need to read, but watch it. And Anthony Davis is the author of many of these stories, over 50, 55 maybe, or more, by now more than that. In particular one, 10 Myths of Federal Government Debt, it was done 6 years ago, and now it is worsening. And $35 trillion of the debts is such an amount of money, where she starts with the first one and says, if you buy everything and every store, every facility in the whole Europe, every single country of the Europe, if you buy everything there, you will not spend more than $20 trillion. But we own almost double that. We have $35 trillion in debts. And on the other one of these 10 myths, he explains that it is not just $35 trillion, it is much, much more than that. Variety of obligations of the federal government starts from the monthly mortgage payment of month by month paying obligations, but there are other ones which are quite a bit long standing, and the total debts of the federal government is approximately $165 trillion. And he explains that the government has certain properties, values. They have 8,000 tons of the gold in Fort Knox, which is, less than $5 trillion or $500 billion. And property of the land, about 500,000 acres. And some other things, which total is about $20 trillion. And he also explained that we receive in the taxes collection about $4 trillion, out of which we already paid $1 trillion just for interest payment to those who lended us money, variety of sources, international and domestic, which are running out of the money to lend us any more, and the only resource we're left over is to print new money, and new money in last 3.5 years was printed in the amount of the 80% of the total bills in existence of this country for 250 years. which is about $16 trillion, where too many dollars, too many bills, too much money, running same and chasing same amount of goods, automatically goods are becoming much more expensive, where salaries of the people do not follow that speed of the printing, and the inflation of 10% statement is just a joke. It is going over 20% of the inflation because too much money supply is killing everything. And the only remedy to lower the price, which Kamala Harris is trying to enforce by controlling the prices, which was normal status of the economy in the eastern bloc of Europe, Warsaw Pact countries, like 15 countries or so, where the leading role was Soviet Union, which dissolved in 1991, and everybody abandoned Soviet communism and socialism, and everybody is rushing toward capitalism, but we are doing opposite, backwards. I don't know how this interpretation could be accepted, but that is the fact. And the total obligation of federal governments are about $165 trillion, and federal government collects, and just for the payments, about 2.5% on that money in the form of bonds is about $3.8 trillion data from 6 years ago. And federal government at that time was collecting about $3.3 trillion. That means every year, U.S. government was piling up additional $500 billion more and more. And now, from $28 trillion or something like that, after President Trump left the office, now there are $35 trillion of the debts. And that amount of money this year exceeded $1 trillion just for interest payment. What could be done with $1 trillion of the money? Every single homeless person in the United States, from military personnel to people with mental problems, illnesses, could be sheltered and secured in similar to hotel type of facilities for $1 trillion per year. Not just $1 trillion, but every single year. At the same time, we collect about $4 trillion. That is about 25% goes just for interest, year after year. And in 10 years, that is $10 trillion. 10 trillion, housing for everybody and anybody. At the same time, we are paying also, that is basically 25% of the total collected revenue is the interest payment for those who lended us money years before and now. And that leaves just $3 trillion for everything else. Out of those $3 trillion, we paid approximately $1 trillion just for the one department which has a very wrong name, in my opinion, and proposal was done 10 years ago by the former congressman of Ohio, Dennis Kucinich, who was running for president on the Democratic ticket, who claims that department supposed to be renamed and be called Department of Offense, not a Department of Defense. We could also create one more Department of Defense instead of this one calling defense, but actually it is offense. And we pay them quite a bit heavily, juicy, over $1 trillion per year, which is about what left over of $3 trillion after we subtract $1 trillion from $4 trillion, left over is $3 trillion, and we pay them about $1 trillion, which is about 33% of all overall money available for the government. Other services and functions, it is 33% or $1 trillion. And that is amount of money which is killing us big time. It is no way to repay that one ever. But in, I don't know, segment or meter number 9 or 10, he explains there is still chance possible to do it, but to stop bleeding, to bring that debt to zero increase. But the actual increase, which he proposes 10% of across the board for everything, meaningfully, not just periodically, and that could be in 5 years reduced to zero and kept that way forever. In that case, we don't pay $1 trillion for those who lend us money, but we build everything from the scratch on the zero balance with still debt of $165 trillion. But in about 100 years, we could possibly build the economy to keep busy everybody, including those 10, 11, or 12 million newcomers who came across the border without the rights to come illegally. We could keep them to produce something, and maybe in 100 years we could recover and to be on the zero balance without too much money overflow or too little money to go to borrow from somebody else. Again, our children, impossible to pay that debts. Our grandchildren, less likely also, and grandchildren, and I don't know, 5 generations grandchildren will not be able to pay it back. And this is almost 12 minutes. And now our kids will not be able to afford to go on vacation and spend money because they will have to work overtime through the vacation time to cover up for extra expenses, because of the future solution will be only to raise the taxes across the board, for everybody in this country. And for now, that will be all, just because it is limitation of 15 minutes on the YouTube. I will conclude this conversation and try to put it on the internet. That way people start opening eyes and doing something. And I will also like to have a proposal that all of you starts watching Anthony Davis, professor of University of Pittsburgh, of the Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, who explains excellently, brilliantly, and force the Congress people, every single one, 538 of them, to go for a month education instead of 5 hours calling for donations. Spend 5 hours watching this repeatedly every single day as a form of reward or punishment, whatever you call it, but force them to listen to that, to understand that, and then play the money with a credit card without end of the balance. Thank you very much and have a nice day, and see you some other time. Thank you. Bye.